Welcome back to IT 360 Advisor Podcast. Today we have our guest, Todd Thousand. Todd, what's new with you?
Well, can you believe that we're into March Madness? We're a quarter of the way almost through the year, through 2022. I mean, it just seems like faster and faster time is going by, and one of the things that is starting to creep in there is Windows 11.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been a while since we've done a podcast. I think the last podcast we did was over Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So there has been quite a bit of changes coming out in the world of IT, and one is Windows 11. And let's just talk about that. So, Todd, what is Windows 11?
Well, Windows 11 is the newest version of Microsoft's desktop operating system. It came out to the public in October of last year, and it's taking off. Just like any Microsoft operating system, once they announce it, you have different buckets of users, those people that want to get on it immediately, and some of those, quite honestly, were on it before it ever hit the public streets. And then you have other people that don't necessarily want to be on the bleeding edge or interested, but they want to work out the bugs, so to speak, or have somebody else work out the bugs. And then you have kind of that third party that says, you know what I've got right now, which hopefully isn't Windows XP or 98. We have run into some of those still, but they may be running Windows 7, for example, or Windows 10, and they're content.
Well, let me ask you that question. So if they are, let's say someone is running an older Windows version, Windows 7, can they jump to Windows 11?
Well, they can. I always like fresh installs if possible, and we get it. It's not always a possibility, but if you go back to your question about Windows 7, there's still a lot of people out there that are running 7. Although, realistically, Windows 7 has end of life, but there are, I believe it's this year, is the last of the extended security update possibilities. What that really means is they can still get critical patching, provided that they purchased the Windows 7 extended security updates. But, again, we would recommend getting off of 7, and you can still go the 10 route. Even though Windows 11 is out, it's going to be a little while yet that 10 is supported. So there's no necessity to go to 11. But again, you have your early adopters, and some of those people, they just want to jump there right away, which does potentially cause some problems, by the way.
So you have, you're one of those early adopters, like to be cutting edge. What are some of the requirements that are needed? I know Windows 11 has a little bit heftier hardware requirement than any Windows that's been in the past. So what are some of the requirements?
Yeah, that's a great question. So hardware, there's always system requirements. Whenever Microsoft puts out a new operating system, you always have those system requirements. Now, remember, system requirements between the terms required and recommended, two totally different things. But if you look at what they've done with Windows 11, it's supposed to be more secure, and one of those requirements is a security chip. It's called a TPM chip, or Trusted Platform Module 2.0 is the version that you'll have in your desktop or laptop. So that is a requirement. There are ways around it, but there's always ways around anything. Doesn't mean it's right, but there are ways around it. However, we do recommend that security. We talk about security quite a bit, and it's no different with Windows 11. It is supposedly more secure than 10, more secure than 7, and so on and so forth. but part of that is that requirement for that TPM. When it comes to other things, you look at the RAM that is necessary, 4 gig of RAM, and we again, that's a requirement. Our recommendation, however, 16 gig of RAM. Things change, applications change over the time, so you don't want to go through this process of getting a Windows 11 installation and a year from now finding out I did it on an older machine. It did pass the requirements, but it doesn't cut it anymore.
So give me a rundown. So someone goes to Windows 11. What are some of the features that they're going to get from like a Windows 10 going to a Windows 11?
Yeah, so they've done a much better job at changing the interface. What I mean by that is, traditionally Microsoft has been horrible at changing that interface. I mean, if you think about, remember going to Windows, I believe it was Windows 8, you kind of had the tile look and feel. Actually, 7 did, but 8 had built on that. But you had that tile look, and everybody was so used to a kind of a desktop that, even though it went from one operating system to another, it was familiar.
Mm-hmm.
It became less familiar. Now we're used to it. We're used to that tile look and feel. But they have done, Windows 11 has done a better job of that. It's cleaner, especially if you look at the start menu, what Microsoft has done. This has always been one of my biggest pet peeves, and I'm horrible at this, but change.
Mm-hmm.
And so Microsoft, they always change something for us, right? So what they've done is they've taken that start menu. If you notice on your Windows 10 and previous, that start menu is on the left-hand side of your lower left corner, right? You got the little Windows key down there. What they've done is moved it to the middle. So you got your taskbar along the bottom, right? So you had your start, and then on the opposite side, you had your clock and calendar, for example. Microsoft has moved the start menu to the middle of that taskbar. Now you can move it back. You can change that so that it's more familiar. They do give you that capability, but it's just those little things, because that's the first thing you see. And so it's like, oh boy, is this going to be a rough patch here or not? But I will say what they've done to make it as familiar as possible, even though they've made some changes, I think they've done a much better job this time around.
Yeah, I think, didn't they also changed it to have the ability to run Android apps as well?
They did. So you have the capability of running Android apps. A lot of those apps will be through Amazon's App Store. They've also, speaking of stores, so Microsoft Store, where you can get applications, they've done a much better job of that. What is really nice is one of the features that I like is Teams. Mm-hmm. So if you've got Office 365, depending on the version or the subscription, you've got the capability of running Teams. And let's face it, with the pandemic, when it hit, companies were scrambling. How do I get communication and collaboration to work now? Somebody's not in the office, or I've got to deal with the customer. How was that done? I mean, Zoom had been there. Teams was there, but a lot of companies didn't use it. Pandemic pushed Teams on, or I shouldn't say pushed it on, but was a real possibility of collaboration remotely now. And so with that, Teams is now built into Windows 11. You actually will see it on your taskbar. So they split up chat and video conferencing there.
Oh, nice.
But it's nice to have that. Yeah, it is. It's very nice to have that capability. So they baked that in. Some of the other things is, again, you look at that taskbar, and they're taking some features from different operating systems. So you look at the taskbar, it looks similar to Chrome OS. So if you ever look like a Chromebook or something along those lines, the look and feel, however, looks like it's more of a Mac OS. And so what they've done is they've blended those backgrounds and those colors. They've softened everything up. You're starting to see some familiarity. And I believe that a lot of that is so that if you have somebody that is used to one of these other OSs, Microsoft basically is saying without saying it, hey, come and look at what we've done because it's familiar to you. Maybe we can draw you over to our side.
Gotcha. Well, besides look and feel, performance wise, like what is Windows 11 going to offer you over its previous versions?
Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest pieces that I would say that they've made improvements on. Your battery efficiency is higher. So what that means is a longer battery life. Your updates. So you got these Windows updates that occur. Those are smaller packages, and so the updates are much quicker. One of the big things that I really like, and you've seen this in the medical, for example, the medical industry for years, is dictation, right? You had Dragon dictation there, and so a lot of the doctors and PAs and so forth, they would dictate, and it would go into a Word document, for example. Microsoft has got that built in. I believe they had that previously, but they have improved on it. And so it's got voice dictation with auto punctuation, because I don't know about you, I use dictation occasionally for texting, those types of things. And it's always, you're always saying something and then you got to say comma, period, and so forth.
Yeah.
This auto dictates, which is, I mean, to me, that is huge. And for those people that aren't quick typers or don't like to type, this is great for notes. And it's pretty accurate. I mean, you've seen accuracy change over the years. It's pretty accurate. So
still have to proofread though. I mean, it's. I'm pretty well known for not typing anymore on my phone because the new iOS update on my Apple. I don't know what they did to the keyboard, but I have more typos now. But what I find myself doing is I do a lot more like literally voice texting, not just a voice memoing. But then I find myself in a voice memo going period, comment, and it doesn't. But they're not seeing any written text. It's just me verbally talking, and I'm like, I'm an idiot. Like it's just hilarious. But yeah, the dictation I think is key, and that's great that they figured that out. It has come a long way recognizing the way you speak, and I think it learns too, doesn't it? It kind of learns your cadence, and
it's adaptive.
Yeah, your verbiage and all that way. Yeah,
it is, and that's nice. There is one other feature that I think is really nice. I'm habitual at this, and it's a bad example of what you should be, but I constantly have several documents open, several applications at once, and then I wonder why my machine runs slow. But what is nice in there is in Windows 11, you now have what is called a snap layout. So think about right now we're on this podcast and we actually use Microsoft Teams, but it fills up the screen. What if you had the capability of doing a layout so that I have 3 applications on my screen at once, so that I have Teams here, I can have email next to it, and maybe a spreadsheet or a web browser opened all at once. I can see all those at once. Today, without Windows 11, you would do that on multiple monitors, or you could finagle it, but it's really not efficient. So I can resize this window, but the problem is when I get out of that application, it's not like the next application is going to take that form necessarily, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So right now, I can have all 3 of those again open on one monitor. That's good and bad, because now what I'm going to have is 9 applications. I got 3 monitors, so I have 9 applications open. I mean, it's not that you couldn't have them open, but you flip between them, if you know what I mean. I can see all 3 of them this way.
Good. Well, those are the good things. What are the bad things?
Well, again, change change is change can be bad because now it opens up with any Microsoft operating system. The biggest issue that people have um, or voice is I don't know where this is at. I knew where it was at in Windows 10 or Windows 7. Uh, I can't find this in 11. I will say Microsoft has made it a little bit easier to find some things. You know, before you got used to where do I go for control panel? Where do I go for, um, different applications that might maybe settings, trying to find those. They've made it easier to find, more organized. The biggest issue that I see, however, with Windows 11 now, you used to be able to um, have a period of time. If I went from 7 to 10, I have a period of time where I say, a longer period of time, I should say, I'm not really sure that I like this. I was used to 7. I've seen 10 now. Maybe I don't want to go to 10. I could roll it back. With 11, you can still roll it back. However, I believe it's 10 days now. So after a 10-day installation of Windows 11, you cannot revert back to a previous version. So what that means is the only way you can realistically do that is to, if you have an image-based backup like we do with all of our customers, we can take that image of what it looked like previously, and we can throw that back on to the individual's machine. Or the other way to do it is you have to completely wipe everything out and install a fresh version of the previous operating system, the applications, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be frustrating because if you have to do a fresh installation, you lose that customization that you had or that personalization that you had previously.
Yeah, all your icons on your desktop, and I mean that would be
Exactly.
very frustrating. Well, let me ask you this question: if someone is interested in going to Windows 11, what are they looking like as a experience of it being installed?
Sure. So and great question. I will tackle that one as if they're our current customer.
Sure.
So again, depending on the machine, if it is a remote user, for example, um, some of the things you have to understand, regardless if they are remote or in the office, um, if it's a business machine, so it's owned by the company, we absolutely can help in that. But what we have to verify again, does it meet the hardware requirements? That's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
Again, requirements, not recommendations. Second thing is, does it meet the recommendations? Because again, just because it meets requirements doesn't mean it's going to be a good experience.
Yeah, that's
If it
exactly
meets
right. It's I mean some video games like simulator driving games, they have a recommendation and then the requirement, and then if you just go with the minimum, your experience is atrocious. Like you have to turn your graphics
Yes,
card way down. You're just visually. So I think that's a great thing for people to understand is the difference between requirement and recommendation.
absolutely. The other thing is, do your applications that you run in your business, your line of business apps, do they work with Windows 11? Depends. A lot of times it'll depend on the age. If it's a newer application, we'd like to hope that it does. The issue that you have with these app developers is that, again, you have these different buckets, and some developers were ahead of the game, and they worked on 11 um, updates if they had to their application prior to. Some lag behind, and what they're doing is this version of the application will no longer work or will not work with 11. We're coming out with a new one. However, there's a cost potentially
Mm-hmm.
to that new version of that application, but it will work with 11. So you just got to make sure that that's occurring. And then we've seen, of course, older equipment, peripherals. So printers are a big one because an HP or a Brother, um, for example, or Lexmark may not have created a driver that will work with 11. And part of that reasoning is they want you to buy their newer model.
Hmm.
This printer's been out for 3-4 years, and we don't want this printer to be carried over into a newer operating system.
So if they meet all the requirements, recommendations, um, is it just our techs going in, remoting in, install? I mean, what is the experience? Like, is it something they can do during the workday? What's going to be their work day if we go in and install Windows 11? Are they going to have to leave their computer for 2 to 3 hours? Like those are the questions that I, as a salesperson, as I've been talking to some clients, or they actually brought it up to me about going to Windows 11, and just like anything new, I'm like, why don't we wait and see what all happens with Windows 11 first before we talk about installing this? But if they say, hey, let's go ahead and install it, what's that? I mean, what are they going to experience as in downtime, I guess?
Again, it's all dependent upon the machine. Where are they at on that scale of requirements? Because if they're on the lower end, Microsoft says 4 gig of RAM, for example, and a gig processor. I don't know anybody who's got a gig processor for one. Well, you might have it on a tablet potentially, but um, if you meet just the minimum requirements, it's going to take longer, of course, to do that upgrade. But I think more importantly is having that conversation of what do you hope to achieve out of this? What is your reasoning? And we're not trying to say you can't do it or stop anybody. That's not the case, but we want to help you with your expectations as that end user. Make sure that we're doing this for the right reason. If you just want to do it because I just want to see what it's all about, I mean, but does that help you in your business, as far as, again, being efficient and productive, or is it counterproductive to do it?
Mm-hmm.
And so that discussion comes up, but I guess specifically to answer your question, it's not terribly long to do those things, but it will be dependent upon each individual machine and what that configuration is. So I can't give you a direct answer for that, but generally speaking, it may be a few hours.
Okay. Now, is it something that's an all or nothing for a company, or can some people be on 11, some people be on 10?
It can be mixed.
Okay.
It can be mixed, and so that has not been an issue so far. Although I will say we have not had a terrible amount of users that have gone to 11. Most have had a discussion, maybe brought it up to us and said, I'd like to do this. For those people that are more adventurous, just be aware of your time frame that you have to roll back, and be aware that there may be some, again, applications or devices that will no longer work with 11, and then we have to make a determination of, okay, where do we go from here?
So is that something? I mean, do we do a discovery? I mean, I know it's a client of ours. If it is a client of ours, we know pretty much how their IT network's set up. But I mean, to have a new client come in, I mean, do we just do a network discovery, do a scan, figure out all their programs, and say these will work, these won't work? I mean, is that something that we do? How does that work to determine what programs will work and not work?
Well, and that's a great question. So with our existing customers, we do business reviews, or it might be called a strategy overview, where it's a regular meeting with them, and those types of questions come up. Could we, what does it look like? What are our expectations? Or maybe coming from us, could you?
Yeah.
Again, so we help with that communication between us and our existing customers. With somebody new coming in, unless they have voiced that, that is, generally speaking, not one of our priorities, is to get them over to 11. Now, where that changes a little bit is if they go out and buy a new machine. And right now, most manufacturers are offering Windows 10 on their machines with an 11, a license to upgrade to 11. So they come shipped with Windows 10, but we're not seeing a whole lot of adaptation of 11, both existing customers and prospects at this time. And I think the thing to understand there again is going back to timing. We're talking that it's been out, roughly 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't want to say the wise person will wait, because that's not the case. Some may have a business case to go to 11. But I always fall on the conservative side of, again, let's see what those issues are and those problems are that everybody else is having, and can we get around that without having to tackle those problems? If we can't, then we can't, and we have to figure out, again, what's the best course here. But
yeah, I'm always a big fan of doing it in stages. Let's do these 5 people. Let's do these 5, just to see if something crazy happens, and if it does, then the whole company isn't too much, not being shut down because 11, for some reason, a program's not working with it, a vital program with them. So
yeah, it's a lot like plumbing. To me, you think you've got it fixed, and you turn, you may turn this nut a little bit too much, and now there's a leak 13 feet that way. And so it never fails. But it's the same, and I like the idea of, again, what you just stated, doing it in batches. Because if you take, for example, a manufacturing or engineering company that is using some type of a 3D drawing program, and that's the company's bread and butter, and you go and install this on there, and that company is the version that they have, which, let's face it, these applications are not cheap.
yeah,
But that version that they have doesn't work with Windows 11. It's potential that somebody didn't do the due diligence on it, but I think more importantly is, did that person's ability to create revenue just get shut down?
Oh yeah, that's,
and that is the potential there, because again, some people like that, the newest and greatest. We understand that. It's again, what is the most important though for the business?
Sure. Well, Todd, about 30 minutes here, so I think we've covered a lot about Windows 11. Got anything else you want to include on this?
No, I think that, I think the biggest thing, again, is, especially if it's an existing customer, we're just asking, hey, let's have a conversation about this. We're not saying you can't do it. We would never tell you can't do it. There's always a way to do something. It's just, what is that way? And we want to work together to make sure we're going down the right path. And again, if it is an existing customer, we do have these conversations in our business reviews, especially if it's time to replace a machine, or you got a new user. We'd love to talk about what that looks like. Should we go to 11? Should we stay on 10? Do we wait till next year? Are all the problems going to be worked out? And I can answer that one easily. No, all the problems are never worked out, but can we get you closer to what you want to be your goal?
Gotcha. Well, Todd, I think that's some great information. We definitely appreciate the time. Hey, if any of the listeners out there want some more information on Windows 11 or just anything IT in general, feel free to reach out to us. You can reach us through our website at it360.biz. That's it360.biz. Thank you.